Good girl. Good morning, everybody. Happy day before Halloween. Happy Friday. Yay, Kiri, good girl. Squeak the ball. Good girl. Yay. And Kiri says squeak, squeak this morning for you all. Get it. Good girl. It's a very squeaky morning here in Northern California. Hi, Kiri. So hello, it's me and your host and disembodied voice, Justin, who I've not put in my ear, so he's going to be beyond the grave today, which is totally appropriate for Halloween, but I guess I'll put him in my ear anyway, I guess. Just so you guys don't have to hear the echo. She actually did kill one yesterday, Val. I had to inter the killed ball in the trash yesterday. We still have an entire package of new fresh squeaky balls. However, so we're good. You know, thanks to Twitch, thanks to my personal Twitch channel, which bought Kiri extra squeaker balls. David will have to deal with squeaking for a good long time yet to come. But yes, hello, and yes, hey, thanks for all the Kiri faces in chat. The cute little Kiri face. I love seeing the cute little Kiri face. Every time I see it, I thank Amy, Chibi Amy's daughter, mentally, because it's adorable. Good girl, Kiri. Yeah, so we do have a fairly high chance of Kiri emergency today, but we'll see. We'll see if she goes to sleep and is a good girl. Let's see here. Let's get everything where we want it. We're going to use metallics. You guys remember, some of you were here yesterday for the Ghost King exclusive spectral blue variant painting of, etc. Let's see here. We're using Sophie Silver for things like the cape, and I'm thinking about glazing the sword with it, and we were edging the sword and edging the face with shining mithril too, and we're also using blade steel. So I don't think there's anything else on this model that I want to be really, really opaque. Because, you know, remember what we did in the beginning is we put down some cloudy gray, some actual just regular paint around his face. Let me get him in focus here. Focus, please. And putting that paint on the helmet made the face darken, which is cool because it gives us this kind of ghostly ethereal thing. And I was able to highlight it with some Sophie Silver and made it look really cool, and bring out the features that way. But I don't know that there's any other part of this model that I want that kind of dramatic effect for. The problem is that if we paint that cloudy gray over all of these armor plates, everything is going to go really dark. And so if we want to preserve the translucency, yes, we did magic yesterday. We're going to continue with some more magic today. We're going to build on the magic that we built yesterday. And I got a little bit too frosty down here on this because I didn't mix up my Sophie Silver. But we did determine that the metallic base is so sticky that it is perfect to go over translucent bones. So yeah, now I'm feeling like we need like other magical paints with just our flake in it to go over the top of translucent bones. But yes, and it's the day before Ultimate Magic. It is Halloween Eve, and so yeah, welcome. One of my favorite holiday probably is Halloween Eve. Halloween in general, sorry. All right, so we do like what happened up here with the glazing metallics, however, onto the shoulder pads. So I'm going to do that here on these front plates and side plates, and I'm going to use my Nightmare Black. Remember, we were using 9280, very useful color, more like blue. It's Nightmare Blue Black. And we're going to line. And based on what we discovered yesterday, because this is all experimental, I haven't actually done this before. Hey, Tashi, it's good to see you. Yes, All Hallows Eve. All Hallows Eve squared. But, so just based on what I saw yesterday, guys, lining is or should be your choice of shading for transparent plastic, just based on the results on this model. Any harder shading has the chance of unfortunately showing up through the back of things, like it shows through the back of this sleeve here. So harsher shading, probably not. I should have just put a thin line down the center of this area or lined around the interior of the sleeve. Lining around it would probably have been the best choice. But because lining is minimalistic shading, it doesn't impact the translucency nearly as much because you're just putting dark lines places. And you have to have shading on a model. If you don't have shading on a model, you've lost contrast, especially when you're dealing with, you know, something like this where it's really transparent and generally light colored. You could just highlight it, but it's not going to look nearly as good as if you actually put that lining in and give it some shadows and depth in the areas where it makes sense, right? And I am going to shade with clear blue on once we get our Sophie Silver down on this cape too. Now, putting a layer of Sophie Silver over this back part here is going to mean that we don't see the body through it as much. It's going to give us that pearlescent kind of bluish white sheen that we got over here, and it's going to carry it across the whole thing. We're still going to see some translucency, like you can see a little bit still through here, see it? But it's not as sharp, so, you know, do as your own preferences dictate as far as that goes. So, yes. A Halloween is never canceled. It's you know, come on now. Halloween is not all about trick-or-treating. Halloween is about being spooky and carving pumpkins, 2 of which I have to carve today. After I finish all my Patreon work for the day and my commission work for the day, I will get to carve pumpkins. That is my... my dearest... boyfriend is going to cook dinner tonight because we're having burgers, so we're going to grill. So that makes me happy. We'll have to decide what we're eating for Halloween. I haven't even thought about it. It's a holiday. There should be special food. Yeah, you could. I mean, the problem is I don't know. Like the Tamiya clears are weird, Val, because Tamiya produces its own solvent, its own thinner for them, so they're not straight up acrylics, and they don't play well with a lot of other paint lines. So, yeah, you could. It'll probably work fine. But you'll have to use their thinner to get them to the right consistency, because I don't agree. I like Halloween just for the way it is. I like that the park is decorated with a giant, like, tree with ghosts hung from it. But anyway, Halloween decorations are always there, even with COVID. But so, yeah, if you're going to use something like the Tamiya clears, which are really good for, like, stained glass effects, they could be used for shading here. But you'd use it like the clear blue, you'd have to thin it way down. So... there is no cooking for Halloween. There's eating bags of candy. I should have ordered more chocolate. That's what you're telling me. But yeah, so thin it way down because otherwise I've used those clears and they're kind of goopy. So, and kind of goopy is an understatement. Great for stained glass windows. Not so great for some other applications, in my opinion. So now that I'm looking at this, guys, remember how I lined around the edge of the body here? You see it right there? It actually, I kind of like the way that it's showing up through the cape. See that line? It actually shows up. So it does define his body a little bit there. Your friend is getting married tomorrow? Great. Oh, I don't have a full costume, but I have a plague doctor mask, so I could sit out and foist my fruit-flavored Tootsie Rolls off on passersby tomorrow if I wished to. Or I guess I could run out to the pharmacy and pick up a bag of candy just in case, but I don't know. A lot of the families around us in our little apartment block here are Indian and Chinese, and so Halloween isn't big there. So I don't see any decorations in our block at all. Which is a shame because I went walking last night and the block like across kitty corner from us has all sorts of Halloween decorations up. So I doubt we're going to get any trick-or-treaters here, but I can at least put out pumpkins. Oh, happy anniversary, green users. Yeah, I bet there's going to be a bunch of little plague doctors out there, and big plague doctors. I don't have my cape for my outfit anymore. They are, but they're like, it's good for special effects, Val. So yeah. It's good for special effects, but they have limited, you can't really highlight and shade them, except with themselves. And so yeah, I mean, you're not going to get as clear as they are because they're not a true water-based acrylic. So when you go to water-based, you're going to lose that. You have to go to solvent. Or inks. If you go to traditional artist inks, you can get that transparency. And those would be acrylics, but they're going to be an acrylic lacquer. but they're going to be dyes, and so they're going to bleed. But if you're not highlighting them, that doesn't matter. So traditional inks, not the De La Rowney's. Those aren't real quote-unquote inks. Those are washes under a different name with slightly different chemical composition. Oh yeah, Chinese at Halloween because you love the Lost Boys movie. Absolutely. Let me see. Where is... I remember. I used to have that soundtrack. It's a good soundtrack. Where is my clear blue? Clear blue. There you are. There you are. All right, so now we've got all of our colors that we're using today. So just to remind everybody who didn't come in yesterday, we're painting this in metallics and clears for the most part with a little bit of Nightmare Black as a liner. The reason I went with Nightmare Black is because we've got a blue model. So I wanted to use a blue shadow for lining, but blue liner is very black, and Nightmare Black is more blue, and it's very translucent. It's very see-through. So for lining this guy, since I want to preserve transparency, I decided this would do better. And so far, I am very, very happy with how it's turning out. So, haha, Sarduki. No, De La Rowney inks are not inks. That's why they call them acrylic inks, because they are not actually real inks as far as old school inks go. The original inks, calligraphy inks, artist inks, you can still get them from Winsor & Newton, and for any ink that you buy for a fountain pen is a real ink in general. You know, so like the Japanese calligraphy inks and things like that, those are dyes. There's a reason when you see that perfect transparency, guys. Perfect transparency, no opacity. You can see through it, but the color is really, really vibrant, but you can see through it perfectly. It has no coverage, just color. That's an ink, and it's that way because it's a dye. When you look at those De La Rowney, you know, things, and you put them down, and you can see that they have coverage, that's your first clue. It's not it's not a dye. It's not what inks used to be. That's why they have to call it an acrylic ink. They can't call it just an ink. They can't call it an artist's ink, whatever. Now, that may change. I don't know what the laws are governing naming at this point, but it's a new beast, and it comes from the textile industry, which decided that it loved the color that it could get with inks, but that it wished it could use pigments instead because it got better permanency and light fastness. So a bunch of chemists got together and figured out how to make pigments cling to cloth like dye. And that's where the acrylic ink comes from. It's essentially the same sort of tech. So when you are paying for a De La Rowney ink, it is actually a wash done slightly differently chemically. So that's why it has different characteristics. But it is pigment. It is ultrafine pigment. It is not an ink. Yeah, that's why they suck for tinting clear resin. Exactly, Sarduki. They aren't inks, though. I mean, okay, chemically, they're not inks. Like, because inks were originally dyes, and that's it. That's like, straight up. You can't get, like, printers' inks depend on transparency, right? And when you're printing, like, a magazine or a printer, it depends on transparency. The minute you cut back on transparency, you lose the ability to reproduce certain colors in vibrant, you know, as far as the vibrancy goes. So that's where it comes from. That's what an ink is. And so when you add opacity, when you do it with pigment instead, you can call it an ink in that you're using it for the same purpose. So, you know, purposefully, as far as how are you using it? I'm using it in a pen. I'm using it for art. I'm using it, you know, as a dye or whatever. That's an ink, but it's not a dye. It's not the original. If you're looking for something that's perfectly transparent or that isn't, yeah. Yes, pigments are particles and inks are completely soluble. Exactly, Sarduki. That's why the inks bleed. But that's why, yeah, pigments are particulate. And so with the De La Rowney, it's those particles. It is the particles themselves that give you coverage, guys. If you've got something that's completely soluble, it's not going to give you any coverage. It's going to give you a beautiful, bright, intense color, brighter than anything else you can get with a pigment. But, and clearer than anything you can get with a pigment. But it's not going to give you coverage, ever. So, Sarduki, you have it perfectly. That is exactly the difference. And functionally, it will change in function accordingly. All right, pardon me, guys, while I mix up some paint. We've been going off about paint chemistry, and hey there, TJ Barkley. It's good to see you again. Yeah, obviously I had my caffeine this morning, right? But I mean, The problem is that in miniature painting, inks have been used for certain purposes for a long time, and they fell out of fashion because they did bleed and they weren't good for shading, which is what people used to use them for. They're not ideal. But the acrylic inks are actually better at the job that inks were originally used for in miniatures. They're not as like gem-like and clear, but they can be used better because they're washes. They're heavy washes. So it's six of one, half dozen of the other. Unfortunately, it's the issue is confused and cloudy, and going to get more so because, you know, as everybody switches away from the lacquer and dye inks and toward the acrylic inks, they're also probably cheaper, and they don't wreck your brushes as much because the lacquers and traditional inks can dry out your brush hair, stuff like that. Well, it depends on what you're doing, Scrying Eye, right? Like I just said, the Dale Rowney inks, i.e. washes, are better for shading miniatures, but they're not going to give you, if you're looking for something really transparent and vibrant to, say, put over metallics, then traditional, like real inks, actually will give you more saturated results. But always be conscious of the fact that you never want to highlight over them with anything. Like if you're going to use traditional inks, they bleed. They will bleed. If you try to highlight over it, it'll bleed through because it reactivates when you add water, just like watercolor paint. So I'm not saying that Dale Rowney aren't better at the job that they do on miniatures. I'm just saying that it's different. And sometimes when you're talking to somebody about inks, you're talking at cross purposes because what you think is ink and what they think is ink is totally different. When I hear the term ink, I think dye. Unless you specifically tell me Dale Rowney inks or acrylic ink. If you say acrylic ink, then I know exactly what you're talking about. But when somebody asks me a question about ink here on the thread, I always have to clarify, what are you using? Because what you think is ink isn't actually an ink. It's what the new marketing in art decides to tell you is an ink. Yeah, I mean, the traditional inks are far lovelier. I agree. I love the transparency to them. I have an oxblood ink that I actually want to use on miniatures at some point because it's just gorgeous. It's this bloody dark red. It's beautiful. Yeah, and I use fountain pens also. I have actually that is the most expensive and frivolous, the most frivolous item I own. In my previous relationship, my ex-husband complained because I was always using money for practical purposes. I was never buying anything truly frivolous. He bought a lot of frivolous things and enjoyed it. And I just didn't really, you know, if I buy something, I want to get a use out of it. So he finally gave me a cash present one holiday, and he's like, you have to use this for something frivolous. And so I decided to buy the most expensive fountain pen on the planet. Not really the most. I'm sure there are more expensive, but I bought myself a $300 fountain pen. Let's just go there. I bought the fountain pen that Neil Gaiman uses. Which I think is the Pilot Namiki Amber 823 or 824. Anyway, it's got like 18 karat gold, like, you know, accents on it, and the nib is gold. It's crazy. It's also the best fountain pen I've ever used, hands down. So I actually got away with buying a frivolous thing that I use all the time because I always use it for journaling, always, and sometimes for note-taking. I'm going to thin down my metallics. Remember, we were using thinner metallics so that we can put them on in kind of a glaze and not block a lot of light. Because the more light we block, the more we lose this transparency. I mean, it is chibi, except I kind of resented it because I've always been... I spent a lot of my life extremely poor. And I didn't grow up that way, but nobody ever really taught me to handle money. So when I hit high school and college, I was terribly bad with it. And so I spent a lot of time being just like deadly poor. And ever since that time, you know, I taught myself to handle money and to get better with it and to be conscious of what I was spending. So for me, like truly frivolous spending isn't necessarily fun. But the fountain pen was something that I actually did covet because if you buy a cheap fountain pen, you know it. They just don't work as well. And so I could do that because I knew secretly that I was going to use it all the time. So it wasn't really a frivolous purchase. But yeah, I think when you spend a lot of your life, I mean, there's two ways of going about it, right? You can spend a lot of your life not having any money so that when you do have money, you're just like, oh my God, I can finally spend money on something fun for me. Or you can like finally have money and go, oh my God, I am not being nearly as stupid with this as I used to be, and kind of go the other way. And that's the way that I went. So I'm putting a thin glaze. You can see the thin glaze metallics going down on this front part. See these? Yeah, it's a gorgeous fountain pen. Yeah, but other people think that they're frivolous, right? Because you bought a $300 fountain pen, you know, and by $100 worth of ink too. Yeah, I love to write with my Pilot. It's a lovely. I mean, I actually, guys, I'll tell you a secret. I actually have two. Because I got the first one, I didn't pay attention to the nib size, and I ended up getting the fine instead of the ultra fine, and it's way too thick for me to use on a lot of my journals because the paper is just not thick enough. So I ended up buying a second one. So yes, that was my frivolous purchase of what, 6 years ago? I don't know, 7 years ago. I love them though. Fountain pen conventions. No, I've got the gold standard in fountain pen. I don't need to look anywhere else. I don't need extras. I've already got two. I'm good. One with the thicker nib, but one with the thinner. Yeah. Oh, I agree with you on many counts. Actually, I was just telling David the other day because he was looking to order a pair of slippers because I just ordered a new pair of slippers for the winter. And shoes are something I will not compromise in quality on. I will shell out $120 for a pair of decent shoes, or $150 for a very high quality pair of shoes because I know that I'm going to wear them like till they're dead. And quality just goes farther with footwear, and that includes slippers. So I don't mind spending like $50 or $60 on a good pair of slippers because I wear them all the time in the house. Like I never go in sock feet in the house. I always have my slippers on. All right, so there we go. See, but you can still see the light through it, right? It's still transparent, see? So that's why we're thinning this metallic down. And we can do it because we're using the Bones metallics. Any other metallic is going to fall out of solution and get streaky on you. So if you try this trick, do the Bones metallics. And if you're not using Reaper metallics at all, test it. Thin it down, try it on a small area of the base before you paint the base. Yeah, exactly. Oh, Edison pen, nice. Oh, nice, Nomad Zeke. That's a great present. That's a good present to yourself. Oh yeah, I can still write with cursive. That's what they were still teaching it in school when I was there. Now everybody just tells their printer to print out script. Although I will say that when I write notes now, I do write it in my own block font. I don't use cursive. May have gone over a little bit on that metallic. Yeah, so there's definitely, I agree that there are things that you are paying for quality and it is worth it. Absolutely. Whereas for things like blue jeans, I just, I buy standard brands. I go to Kohl's. And, I just ordered more jeans for the winter here. Now that it's actually cold out when I walk the dog in the morning, it's like 45 degrees. So we've got a fair amount of flake on here. I'm going to make sure I smooth that out. Don't want to leave any puddles. So we're getting our armor. You can see though, you can see how this like keeps the transparency. So let's take a look. Yeah, remember, see now? It's a little bit darker, it's a little bit grayer in the front area because we are blocking light. Now the good side effect to this though, guys, is that we can see the shape of the Wraith's body so much clearer through this cape. See how you can really see, not just the outlined part here, but look over here. Like you can see a kind of a crisp outline. You lose it here because we haven't shaded these plates with metallics yet. But we're going to get a very transparent look through this cape. So we're preserving our transparency. Now we are going to see just a little bit of that go away once we put the glaze of the Sophie Silver on here. Yeah, glass pen to me says, "Anne will break this." Like, I have to, like, factor in my own, like, tendency to drop things on floors flat, like, and onto concrete. I do this all the time. My cell phone is just, like, constantly stressing out because, if it didn't have its little case, it would have been destroyed 50 times over by now. Is buying every Bones Kickstarter considered a frivolous purchase? Are you going to use them for a game uses touch? If you're going to use them for a game, it's certainly not a frivolous purchase. Now you have all of the NPCs and monsters you will ever need if you have bought every Bones Kickstarter. You should have pretty much all of the primary monsters in D&D at this point. You should have a monster for every occasion. Like, you could throw a monster party and never repeat yourself. Alright, gonna put some silver onto these side, or steel, sorry, blade steel onto these side plates. Now, back here, there's definitely a recessed area back here, and I may shade that. So I'm gonna reach for my Nightmare Black, and I'm gonna start lining around these plates a bit. I'm gonna go very cautiously and slow. I want to make sure that I'm not, like, screwing anything up or making anything look bad. Yeah, well, that's not me, Val. I'd be wandering around the house with it, and then I'd drop it on the floor and step on it, and then Kiryu would step on it, and then we'd kick it all over, and then we'd both be screaming because there was glass everywhere. Like, so, you gotta know yourself. You gotta know yourself. Alright, so I'm gonna start shading the underside of these plates with just a little bit of lining. So, let's see. That's gonna give us a shadow. I am not using this Nightmare full strength. I just want this. I want this kind of a shadow here. I want to be able to define the plates so that you can see them, just like I did up here on the arm. Oh, interesting. I've never noticed bubbles. I mean, but I hold my pen really far forward. I'm glad you're all at, like, I have a secret following, like, of, you know, fountain pen aficionados here. I had no idea, guys. And this makes me happy. We can talk pretty inks. I think it's like the, I forget which ink company my Oxblood is from. Dang it. My Oxblood ink is so nice. Okay, I should not ask this, but what is your favorite ink company, guys? All of you fountain pen aficionados. What's your favorite company that makes awesome colored inks for writing within your fountain pen? Oh, I write by hand because when I'm writing fiction, I find that if I get writer's block, I can break it if I go to pen writing, Amy. Like, possibly it's because, if I had to analyze it, I'd say I think it's because I have to write slower when I write manually. And so it slows down. It forces my brain to slow down and actually come up with solutions. So, yeah, fountain pen. And I journal a lot. I have a journaling habit. In fact, I've got a box of, like, blank journals in the bedroom that I'm hoping David doesn't remark upon, you know, as I buy more journals. I have a bad journal habit. Although, actually, I haven't bought a new journal since I've been out here in California. I have been using my previously bought journals instead. So, shadows, guys. Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, Noodler's good. Like, which one? I bought one of their inks. I don't remember which one I have. Yeah, I'm not sure, Saltor. I am a very fast typist, though. I worked for Relay for the hearing and speech impaired, and you have to type over 100 words a minute in order to really be good at that. I think they test you and they want over 60 when they first test you, but as you do the job, you get infinitely better or faster. Well, faster and more accurate. So I'm a very, very fast typist, so I really feel like it does have something to do with slowing myself down, but it could also be the change of format. You're right. The tactile sensation and all that. Noodlers. All right, well, I'll write down. I'll remind myself that Noodlers exists, and then maybe for Christmas, Zhivago, huh? I'll look it up. Right now I have, I'm trying to think about, there's one I have that's like copper, a copper colored ink that's kind of like sepia that I really like for just the old look that it gives my writing. And then I love the oxblood also. And then my other pen, my broad nipped pen, I actually keep blues and greens in that one. So that's my cool colored pen. So, okay, so we're gotten more outlines. The right thing the wrong way. Chaotic good. That is my, that's my alignment. Nobody is surprised by this. The right thing the wrong way. That's great. I think David's probably more lawful than me, but I'm pretty sure that he's still good. So we're okay. Oh, David could be more neutral. I don't know. I'd have to ask him what alignment he is. Maybe we need to make David make an alignment test. Take the online alignment test. So we're getting our shinies on. Shinies! More shinies. I have a clicky keyboard. Although I write mostly on my my MacBook. Because I got it for that purpose since at the time I started looking for a lightweight laptop for writing that I could just carry in my purse or my bag or whatever. Then MacBook Air was really the thing that was out. Nobody else was putting out an ultralight MacBook or laptop. So I got into Apple at that point, and so now it's always a MacBook. Right now I've got a MacBook Pro for it, but because everything is lightweight now. But so mostly I type on that. My typing speed's probably dropped a bit since I don't have to like take dictation, but all right, so that's coming along. We've got some definition. We haven't lost our transparency. We are failing to pick up some detail here in the armor. So we've got to ask ourselves, are we gonna come in and shade a little bit to bring out some of these armor details? Or are we gonna let it go for now? We're not sure. Oh no. Yeah, I do have neutral tendencies. I definitely tend to be very objective about things, but when it comes down to it, yeah, I'm pretty much a damn the rules kind of girl. I respect the rules if they're serving everyone, but I have my own code of honor for sure. And I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of rules that claim to be for the greater good. And I detest rules for rules' sakes. All right, I'm going to try to like kind of just bring out some of this etched detail. I think what I'm going to do is going to do just a little bit of outlining around it. And then I'm going to put a highlight on it. I'll put a highlight on the edge and keep the interior more toward the dark color. Because this is the challenge with metallics and with these transparents, is to try to get, like when there is detail sculpted on the model, it's very hard to bring out that detail without losing your transparency. So you kind of have to ask yourself, you know, what's your goal? I'm going to shade a little heavier at the sides here, I think. Since my lining works pretty well, but I might want a little bit more shading. I'm experimenting like with this plate, with getting a little bit more shading in there to see now how much darker that plate is, like that area of the body. See how dark it's gone. It's because I've added a lot of shading to it. So I really have to stop myself and question. No, I think that if you're going to do an LED, that you shouldn't even bother with all of this subtlety, Val. I mean, what I'm pretty much showing you today is how to paint it if you are not using an LED. If you're doing an LED, what you should do is paint solid paint, like a dark gray or whatever, over the areas that you want not to glow. So if you wanted this guy to look like a black suit of armor with glowing etherealness all around him, then I would just paint the armor normally with like putting down a dark gray and then put metallic on top of it, just like we did the helmet, and leave the skull like open. And that way the light would go up through the model, the face would glow, the cape would glow, the cloth would glow, but the armor would be solid. You're looking at that point, since you're using real light, the only question is, what am I going to block out? And what am I going to allow the light to go through? But any of this kind of like shenanigans that I'm doing with these super transparent layers of paint to kind of keep the transparency, that goes right out the window the minute you throw a huge LED in there. Like any LED is going to just overwhelm that. At that point, the only question is, what do I block out and what do I let glow? Because nothing else is going to show up. Let's see here. I want a little bit more. I do want a little bit more shading, I think. And I do need a line at the back of this torso. No, not at all. Like, the LED is going to overwhelm. If you want more shimmering, you just do it like this. I mean, this is extremely shimmery. But if you, just like we showed, if you remember, we painted something silver and we looked at the back of it, and the shimmer from the metallic didn't show at all. And that's gonna just be even more overwhelmed when you throw a light in here, because the light's gonna go through all the plastic. It'll probably look cool if you do like a gray base coat and do like the armor, because then like maybe the blade of the sword is going to glow a little bit, maybe, depending. But like the arm is going to glow and the cape is going to glow. You know, it's going to be cool looking. It's just going to be cool looking in a different way. But these techniques are wasted on that. This is for if you don't want to do an LED and you want to paint the model, but you still want it to look cool and kind of ghostly and transparent. Which I think we are successfully keeping that effect, looking at this right now. The only question is, how much of the detail can we bring out on the armor? And what I'll probably do actually is stop working on the armor after I get this last plate etched out and get this body lined. And I'm going to start working with my Sophie Silver to get all the cloth and everything done instead. Then we're going to kind of judge where we are and see how much more we can add. But yeah, remember just, I mean, if you look at the examples of Bones models that are lit by LEDs, I mean, Chibi did one, a really good one, or sorry, Miss Imp did a really good one, with this very model. But the light just floods it, because even a tiny LED is a lot of light for a small model like this. It'd be different if it was a big, big model, but it's not. So essentially, it's going to overwhelm everything. All the details that you put in. And lining might just make it look really weird at that point. But no, if you want a shimmering effect, it's entirely like just paint, not putting an LED into the model. If you want an LED, like you're just like wanting to make it actually physically glow at that point. So the more paint you put on it, the more you're working against that goal. So we've got that silhouette coming in on the side, like we've got it outlined over here, and I need to make sure I've got these plates outlined and this up here also outlined up there. I need a little bit more silver on that, like I do over here, like I've got over here. Yeah, 1 lumen would be a lot for this tiny little thing. Fiber light would be more like a pin light. Yeah, you could do that. But I still don't know that it would really work with the metallics. It's still a lot of light in a Mazik. Soltor has it where those tiny little fiber optic lights, then you actually might be able to get some interesting effects. But again, what's your goal? if you want the model to glow, then that's one purpose. If you want the model to like have shimmering surface, that's a totally different like goal. You're either glowing from the inside or you want light from the outside, right? Light from the outside is what's going to pick up this shimmer, not light from the inside. So ask yourself, I mean, you can't have both. I mean, if you really want to bring out the shimmering and the translucency, what I would do is take fiber optic lights, like fashion like these little translucent will-o-wisps with water effects with a fiber optic light on inside each one, and surround him with will-o-wisps. At which point some of the glow would be coming through his cape, depending on where the will-o-wisps were, and they'd shine through the sword, and they'd cast light on this, and it would make it all shimmery, and they still get the translucence. So yeah, well, then get fiber optic lights and sculpt a bunch of will-o-wisps. But you can't put the fiber optic light. I mean, you probably could put the one of the lights up inside of his core. But I wouldn't put it... I might also, maybe, if you can drill up, you might be able to put one inside of his head. But, you know, you gotta ask yourself, what's my goal and where's the light coming from? Like, this is the key part of mini painting that so many people don't get right away. Is where's the light coming from? If the light's coming from inside the figure, you aren't going to get surfaces. If the light's coming from outside the figure, you're going to get surfaces but not glow unless you artificially create it. The will-o-wisp idea that I just spun off is the only idea that I can think of that would give you, would enable you to do both effects, but you would not be doing either of them like as much as concentrating on one of them. Like, if you figure out a way with a model this small, go for it. But again, it's like purpose. Like, what purpose? What are you going for? What's the key here? Does this guy glow or does he shimmer? Like, what effect are you mostly into? All right, so we've got some armor outlined there. See, now I need to add the metallic glaze over the top. All right, get this glaze over here, and then I'm going to go over to the Sophie Silver, and we're going to do the cape. And then we're going to see where we are. And where we might want to go. Now we've got a little bit of shimmer. Eek! Haha. This is why I don't have nice things. So we've got a little bit, you can see the metallic. Just a bit of the shimmer back there. Once you've got a layer of metallic down, by the way, you can glaze really, really lightweight shadows into things. The metallic base is so fine and so high acrylic that it sticks, even when thinned, to this bones material. And once you have that layer down, then other paint will stick to that. So that's how you work that. I think I'm going to maybe leave this arm ghostly. I haven't decided yet, but I kind of like how it looks glowy. And if you want both effects, then we can keep a glowy sword and a glowy hand pretty easily by just making everything else a little more solid. Well, then paint it like this and put an LED on it and flip the LED at night and it'll block out all the work that you did. My question, though, Val, is, are you getting what I'm saying? It's like, purpose. What's your purpose? Pick a purpose. How are you going to do it? If you want to do it two different ways, get two different models. Or try the will-o-wisp idea. Now I want somebody to try the will-o-wisp idea. All right, where's my Sophie Silver? I don't need two versions of him because I don't like translucent models. I'm only doing this for you. The fact that I can get good results with a translucent model despite hating it is pretty awesome. Good. That's the point. That's what I want to know from you, Val, is do you understand? Jokes aside, do you get what I'm saying? Because that's half a mini painting, is figuring out what effect you actually are going for, making a decision. Where's my light coming from? Should be one of your first questions when you're looking at a model, before you even put paint on it, before you even prime it. I'm going to add a drop of sealer to this metallic to see if I can get it to suspend even better. Because this is Sophie Silver, so it's not the Bones metallic, so it does tend to drop out of solution. Especially when I'm thinning it like 1:1 to water. Most metallics will not stand for this, guys. I don't remember how much I thinned it yesterday, so I'm pretty much just going by gut and trying to layer this thinly over this and see what I can do. Let us see. Because I got a little chalky yesterday because I let it separate, that chalkiness right there. Okay, let's see here. Is this... Yeah, I think this is light enough. And like I said, this is one of the only bases where you could thin it to this level and paint it straight over Bones material and have it actually go on in a smooth layer without beading. I am getting a little streaking. I'm going to take that down real quick. I think I want maybe, I'm going to go with another drop of medium, i.e. sealer, to see if I can get more transparency out of that white. Adding sealer instead of water gives you more transparency and it makes your paint stay in solution better. This may actually work against me. I may get more streakies. We'll find out. So Sophie Silver Hyper Bunny is a blue metallic flake that's somewhat transparent because almost all metallic flakes in acrylic paints are somewhat transparent in their native land, in their natural habitat. So a blue flake in a white base. It was a novelty paint that I came up with just because I kind of wondered what would happen if I did it. And then a bunch of people decided they loved it. And I was like, no, it was a joke. And they didn't listen to me. So you can see that we are getting a little more opacity. You can see that putting this layer of shiny on top of this, you can see the line here, right? So we do lose a little bit of our transparency, but we can still see the armor through it. So I'm going to call that a success. And I am going to keep painting this now. We're going to see how much we lose of the shape of the body here. Look at how dark this has gotten, by the way, guys. Because of all that armor plate, all the metallic paint I put on there, look at how you can see the silhouette now. So we're going to see... maybe I'll start at the bottom. Maybe I want to keep some of that and mostly bring this Sophie Silver up on the bottom. I'm going to play around. Since this is all dramatic, all an experiment. Shiny. But yeah, so Sophie Silver is almost like a blue metal medium, except it's got a bunch of white in it. It's really useful. Like I think its finest hour is in if you use it in highlighting our sparkling blue 9104, which is our blue metallic, because it uses the same flake, believe it or not. And it has the same amount of flake in it, believe it or not. But the difference is that the sparkling blue is built in a very dark base, which makes the flake look brighter. Whereas the Sophie Silver is built in a white base. And so metallic flakes always look washed out and pale and like they're not there against a lighter base. Mostly with this paint, I was looking for a special effects paint. And it works that way. I didn't think I would figure out that it looks the best on, you know, transparent blue models, but I guess I should have kind of known that. All right, I want just a little bit coming down into here. Gotta be careful now because every layer I put on is gonna get streakier because of how thin the white is. So I have to kind of be very careful here with how I'm putting this on. I do want some up top. I need to mix it again. Make sure it stays really, really in solution to make sure my flake is suspended. That's pretty much two. That's probably only the only two D. Clearman. Draw Nipple Pink and Sophie Silver. Technically, I started out with Rose Gold kind of tongue-in-cheek too. I mean, I knew we could probably do it, but is like, you know, well, what is this really useful for? Who cares? Let's just do it. What I call those, I don't call them joke colors, but I call them novelty colors. Because most of the time when you're doing something like Drown Nipple Pink or you're doing something like Sophie Silver, you are going against the grain of paint design of what you should be doing, because it's not a paint that's useful for many things. It's a paint that's very niche. Very, very niche. And you're doing it just because you're like, well, I think we can do this. Why not? Which is not a bad reason to do paint, but don't look for a bunch of uses for it. You won't find them. You can try to get creative with it. I am building it up a bit more here on the top side of this model because the light would be falling. And since I have chosen to portray light outside the model rather than light inside the model, I'm keeping an eye on that. The Sophie Silver, it's a holiday paint. I believe it's in the holiday paint set. 9652. So whenever you see a 96 number, that means it's only available special edition and every once in a while. Maybe it isn't in the holiday paint set. Maybe it's just put out every once in a while. In which case you don't really, there is no substitute for it. The best thing you could do would be to switch to Pearl White or to use the Mithril, like I was using and will be now using again to highlight the edges of the capes. So see, I've got a bit of shiny going on there up on the top of the cape. Kept this transparent. I'm going to come in with my Shining Mithril now and edge things that I want to stay shiny on the edges. Sophie was in the Conswag. Yeah, if you did Reaper Conswag, then it was in the whichever the main box was of that. It's a color we put out fairly frequently, so you needn't, like, cry too much. You could beg Ed to put it out as a special edition Christmas color. If you beg him enough on Reaper Live, maybe he will. Or beg Sadie. Go on Sadie's stream and ask if she'll put out Sophie Silver as one of the Christmas bag colors this year. Although she may have already decided them. We usually do decide them fairly far in advance, so that may not work. But I mean, you have the means to talk to people at Reaper and ask for Sophie Silver, so use it. You have conduits of communication. I actually have an extra swag box from ReaperCon, like all three, like the mega bundle with all of them. We accidentally got shipped 2. So what I was thinking is, I was just kind of sitting on it, but it's unopened. And I was thinking I would do it as a giveaway on my own personal stream at some point. But I was going to wait for a while, because right now everybody has had their swag boxes. It's a recent thing. So I was going to sit on it maybe till next year. It does take up a lot of room in our apartment, though, so maybe not. No, Ron never checks his voicemail or his email. I know this. I used to have to go up and, like, say, hey, Ron, blah, 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 is trying to get a hold of you for blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll check my email. He's just, everybody's so busy. Everybody is so busy at Reaper. So I'm going to kind of, this is kind of a raggedy cloak edge, so I'm going to kind of stipple a little bit as I edge it. I do want this lighter edge to it, though, because that's what I did on the cape edges over here. So I want that edge to come out, especially because I've got a couple of edges here. See how that makes it look more ghostly to suggest that the edge is glowing? So that's it's a great way to bring out this detail here. So I'm using Mithril Silver for this, 9452. I like it a little better for Sophie Silver than Sophie Silver because it's brighter and shinier, and so it catches the light a little better, and you only need a little bit of it. There we go. That's looking good. Got a couple of different edges down there, but I think I'm going to just let them fade off like that. Now I'm just like trying to like use a couple of my lighter colors to pick out some little details. just so I can make sure that, and I'll pick out the edge of this cloth as well, just the lower part of his robe. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I figured. That's what I figured Hyper Bunny, or that they would, you know, it probably would be a more cool giveaway if I waited a year. Though maybe they'll just keep bringing out the same colors, and then I just may as well just give it away whenever. It's got all the miniatures and stuff too. And the paint water jar, and the little tiny light that is brighter than the sun, which is really useful, by the way. Alright, now I need to decide how I'm going to differentiate between these two edges here. And I think I want my clear blue at this point. Good. Ah, see, there's Sophie Silver right there in the commemorative set. And that's going to be a Black Friday. So go for it, guys. Yeah, so those are all the past ReaperCon colors thing. There you go. Now you can get your Sophie Silver before winter. When you might want to do like shiny blue snow effects with it. Alright, I need to add some sealer to this to thin it. Honestly, if I could figure out, where did I put my gloss sealer? It's around here somewhere. It seems like I always think I have my gloss sealer around handy, and then I can never find it. Like, I put it away and decided I didn't need it, then every time I look around I need it. Yeah, get your Thalos while you can. Keep them being put out. Embrace them in popularity. At least Reaper understands that people want the Thalos. I could be using the Thalo blue for this. I probably should have, because it's a greener blue. But I decided to go with the clear. I'm not using a lot of it. So it's just little touches. And this is just slightly darker. The clear blue is slightly darker. It's still a Thalo. It's just a red shade Thalo instead of a green shade. Well, yeah, because they're pure pigments. They're going to be rich hues because they're pure pigments. And there's a crap ton of pigment in the paint. So just a little bit of clear there. Here to shade this. And then I'm going to look at this edge down here, and I have to ask myself, do I want to shade a little bit on the underside of this cape, or do I want to keep it really ghostly and transparent? I think I want to keep it really ghostly and transparent, so I'm going to see what I can do down here. There's not a lot of light falling through here anymore because I put some of that metallic sheen up here. So I'm going to grab some of my Sophie Silver and see if I can put just a little bit on there, and I'll edge it. It might not hit much light. Yeah, the Thalos are super pretty. Oh. Getting a little beating on this one. Yeah, getting a little beating. Maybe my soap, when I wash the model, sometimes the soap doesn't quite get into some of the really recessed areas. So that I'm thwarted in my desire. Let me add one more drop of paint. We'll go a little farther and see. We're really not impinging on anything here. If we block light going down to the underside of the model, it's not going to make much of a difference. So I can go a little heavier with my Sophie Silver and see if I can get it to cover there. Or if it's just a no-go. Alright, let's see. Yeah, that covers. That sticks. So I just got a little bit too much water in it for this particular area. I'm gonna say the metallic base almost always sticks. It's just super fine in stickiness. Oh, there. And then we got some little shimmer. See that little blue shimmer there that we got now? That's great. That's great. So now it actually is coming out with a little bit visually so we can see it. Now I'll take my Mithril Silver and pick up the edge of this cloth, which is also kind of ragged, so I'm kind of stippling. figure out how that goes so I can suggest the shape just on the edge. Like that. There. Now I can see that curl of the cape down there, which is cool. Hey, Fraley, how's it going? Yeah, if who has a social, I have the same question. I have my own little Twitch and Patreon and social media thing. But if you're not talking about me, so yeah, if you are talking about me, then yes, I do have stuff outside of Reaper because I am actually a starving artist. It's afternoon actually in a lot of places. It's just not afternoon out where I am. But anyway, so my sobriquet on other channels is Painting Big, so you can find me separately on Instagram and Twitter as Painting Big, and you can also find me on twitch.tv/paintingbig and on patreon.com/paintingbig, because Reaper is a wonderful gig, but it is not the only gig I do. If I am not the one you were asking about, then apologies. And hey, now everybody else has my social information. Yay! Go to sleep. Good night, Tashi. But yeah, totally. For those who don't know, we're doing an awesome D&D world creating thing over on my own stream on Twitch, which is Tuesdays and Thursdays. We did it yesterday. We got a great turnout. We're right before Reaper Live on Thursdays, so we get a lot of people kind of curiously poking their noses in. But yeah, we were creating a world to roleplay in, and we're painting the characters for it while we're doing it. And I very much enjoy doing my own Twitch on doing that sort of thing. So there we go. So look at how nicely we've had the bottom of that cloak. It's Anne. But it's not, I don't use my name for, because Anne is a fairly, I mean, it's an uncommon name, but, you know, it's still. Painting Big is the way I branded my Patreon, because, you know, it's thinking big, it's painting big. And also I like painting bigger things. So, yeah. Go and definitely go and follow me on Twitch. I also have a YouTube. I tend to put my Twitch streams up on the YouTube afterwards if you want to kind of see what we're doing on Twitch with the world creation thing. I'm going to put our latest one up soon. And I may end up doing a little bit more for YouTube, but I'm not sure. I like Twitch a little bit more than YouTube, but thought about doing some little painting tips videos for YouTube, just as little freebies to get more eyes on things, you know. So yeah, so notice how just doing that edging has really brought out the nice shape, because this is a really beautiful shape of this cloak. And so we still have the transparency. Oh, sure. Definitely share my stuff. You bet, Dungeon Scribe. I think it's without the excellent, or without the possessive accent. It's patreon.com/paintingbig. There we go. Yeah, there we go. No, Medzik, you got it. But yeah, definitely come join my Patreon, guys. I'm like trying to grow it. I'm really excited because we're almost at a goal. It is my main source of income in my artistic life. It is my main job. So supporting me there makes a world of difference. A vote here for the Reaper stream also like makes a world of difference. I know a lot of you sub to us here on this channel, and we are very grateful for it, because that just tells the bosses that Twitch is worthwhile. I would say a sub for the show is a vote for the show, and that's true on my own personal stream or on my Patreon or on Reaper's stream here. It's just wherever you want to put your support, we are grateful. And I am especially grateful for all of my patrons over on the Patreon. I'm about to get started today. Today I am working on our new paint-along video for the $15 tier. We're just starting a new model. So that's exciting. Those of you who 3D printed your version probably won't get a lot of use out of this month, but I feel I have to do the prep because there's some heavy prep on this model if you ordered the resin. So apologies in advance if you 3D printed. You will have a different sort of prep, but one I will not be covering. There we go. So there's the line of the cape. I put that same edging, that same mithril silver edging. And I'm using mithril for this instead of the Sophie silver because the mithril is a shinier flake. So a little bit of it goes a very long way, and it can pick up that edge in the way the Sophie can't. In fact, if I really want these top folds to come up, I'll grab a little bit of the mithril instead of the Sophie silver and kind of get just a little bit on the edge to help pick these details up. And you can see that brings them out a little bit more. So it's all how much you want up here, how much you want to bring out the folds in the color that you use. And then we're keeping our transparency through the middle. So I've kind of decided, guys, to not paint the Sophie silver over the center area. Like, I've gotten the areas all around it, but I kind of am really liking keeping this transparent because then I can see the body of the wraith through it, and that's kind of a really cool effect. It really also makes the cloak look like it's ghostly, which I really, really like. So I think that I may also keep this effect going as I get over here on this arm. I kind of like the fact that it looks like it's really like lighter because because it's so much thinner here on the hand with the fingers splayed out. I don't know that I want too much shading on there like I did on the other side. I may start a little bit of it, but then fade it out as if his hand is glowing more. So wherever you want more of a glow, you've got to keep more of the native plastic, really. Let me get just a little bit of definition on some of this chainmail. And the problem is really making it kind of fade out as it gets closer to the edge of the arm. It's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to take some of it off. This is all experimentation, but once it's dried, you can't take it off really easily, so be very cautious when you're not sure where you're going with your effects. All right, I do want Sophie silver on the front of this cloth, though, so let's mix it up and put it down. Yeah, channel points, right? It is a good question what to do with them. This is beating up a little bit on me, and it's also a little bit strong, so I'm going to wipe it off while it's still wet. Remember, if you come across an effect that you don't like while you're experimenting with these, and you want to remove it, you need to remove it while it's still wet. Still got a little bit of that iridescent blue on there, but I got some beading there, so I'm actually going to add another drop of Sophie silver into my mixture. I I think a lot of people have trouble thinking about what to use with their subscriber points. I just haven't even looked at that for my Twitch stream since we're still new. Mostly right now I'm trying to build support and a viewer base so we can get partner and get more Kiri emotes. Because, you know, everybody wants more Kiri emotes, right? Because where are we without cute Kiri emotes? That's what I'm saying. So I'm going to try to get like just the top of these folds a little bit. And I've got the paint really stretched thin. I have very little of it on my brush. I don't want it to streak. I want a really thin layer, but I want to bring out these folds a little bit. Oh, nice. That's a good idea. That Wapple has. Not surprising. James is full of awesome ideas. I could probably do that. I have good reading voice. I used to read books to my brother on vacations. I read him Bunnicula. I remember reading him that when we were on vacation in Canada. Anybody else remember that children's book? About the vampire rabbit who sucked the juice out of vegetables. Because seriously, cute. Alright, so I got a little bit, you can see the little bit of streaks there where I've brought in some highlight. You love Bunnicula, good. More wings too. Yes, I used to read my brother books. I was the reader. He wasn't. He's tried to get more into reading, but he's got a very little time. It's funny because our parents were both very into reading, but Pete was more athletic, and he didn't get into the habit of reading when he was a kid, and so he's had a harder time establishing it as an adult. There we go. So now I've got that highlight on. You can see that cloth move a little bit more. I want to bring up a little bit more here, and I want to go get these edges. Ah, wrong color. The problem with having two near white metallics out is that you're you're like always reaching for the wrong one. Ah, falling down. All right, we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. Rawr, he says. So sulfy silver for the highlighting. I may put a little bit on his hand to make the fingers pop and make the hand look magical. Do a little bit of highlighting with it to make it pop out more. Maybe suggest a little bit of glowiness. Because just like with regular painting, if you use white to highlight something, even if it's like a kind of weird bluish metallic white, it does suggest glowing. So we could do a little bit of glowiness. There, that's a little better. So now we have a glowy paw. I like the glowy paw. Yeah, thou shalt not use any white other than Reaper. Oh, Bunnicula scared you. Oh yeah, right. And yeah, it had glowing red eyes. It always did. Aww. That sounds cute, Up and Adams. Yeah, if I read a book to you guys, I'd probably offer to read like a classic sci-fi or fantasy book. It's the stuff I like. If I did the Wapple thing, that would be more my shtick. Alright, so we've got some highlights. You can see them on the cloth, kind of bringing it up a little bit. Now I want to get the edging on the cloth to really get the shape, because this has a really cool shape down here. There's a really nice, really cool edge. And I want to bring that out. You can see it kind of. So let's bring that edge out. And then I think we're really dangerously close to done. PC Hodgel. No. The name sounds vaguely familiar. What do they write? Although given the name, I'm guessing it's a female who's got a male protagonist. Because that's what Publishing World does to you if you didn't know. That's why J.K. Rowling is J.K. and why C.J. Cherry is C.J. Because they had male protagonists, and the publishing world thinks that no reader will take you seriously if you're a female author writing about a male protagonist. I shit you not. Or, oops, sorry. I deceive you not. My filter is off today. Oh no, Anne with no filter. Ah, there we go. It's probably no worse than what. Oh, don't. If Reaper Pure White ever goes out of production, GBA, I'm gonna make it myself. I think your wife draws the line at Anne reads us a bedtime story. John is telling me that I need my filter better. Oh, Kiri's kind of moving like she might have a tail sign soon, Justin. Do we have a raid? I guess it's early.
Yes. Let's see.
Yeah, but she's got tail, and at this late date, I don't think that I can go out and come back and still have enough time. But yeah, guys, so you see what I'm doing? I'm just edging now the front, and we're bringing out some of that great detail. Let's back out.
We can raid Sky Daddy. Looks like she's doing some Halloween themed stuff here.
Halloween themed stuff. So there you go, guys. That's what we've got. And we can show it again on Monday, but I gotta rush the dog out. Go ahead and hit that raid in, Justin. Guys, thank you so much.
I think she's doing Jack Skellington.
Ooh, cool. Go say hi to Sky. She's awesome. Happy Halloween, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
You guys are awesome. Thank you very much for coming out. Don't forget, we have Reaper Land at 3 o'clock today. I'm not sure what game we're going to play. We played Marbles last week, so maybe we'll play Stream Animals this week. Just executive decision. I like Stream Animals. So thank you guys very much, and we'll see you at 3.